They didn't ask him to teach him how to cast out lepers, how to raise the dead, but they asked him, teach him how to pray. So they didn't ask him how to feed the 5,000, how to turn water to wine.
I think because when they saw all the miracles and how he command get up and walk and raise the dead, right? So they saw all that. But he always went and prayed by himself. So they saw him going to pray, but maybe he didn't pray in front of them until they asked him, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So they saw him doing those things, and they figured out that, hey, maybe this prayer, whatever he's doing when he goes and pray, is the key to all of this. So if we look in Mark 9, verses 17 through 29, I'm going to skip 19 to 24. Mark 9, 17 says, and one of the crowd answered him, Teacher, I brought you my son, possessed with a spirit which makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it slams him to the ground, and he foams at the mouth, and his teeth, and grinds his teeth and stiffens out. I told your disciples to cast it out, and they couldn't do it. So then skip to 25. When Jesus saw the crowd was rapidly gathering, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, You deaf and mute spirit, I command you, come out of him and do not enter him again. After crying out and throwing him in terrible convulsions, it came out, and the boy became so much like a corpse that most of them said, He is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and raised him, and he got up. When he came into the house, his disciples began questioning him privately, Why could we not drive him out? And he said to them, This kind cannot come out by anything but prayer. So here they did ask him why they couldn't do it. So they tried it on their own, and it didn't work. So they asked him why they couldn't do it. But then we see here, then the answer is prayer. So he says, you can only cast this kind out by prayer and fasting. But did he pray or fast when he cast the demon out?
Not at the time, but he's already been praying and fasting.
Right.
He's already been preparing for whatever comes to him, right?
Right. So he's been preparing. So the praying and fasting it's not something you do at the moment. It's something he did to prepare himself. So Jesus, the prayer and fasting, so the time he spent in prayer, prepared him for whatever he needed to do.
Exactly, It's not like you say, okay, he's sick, let me go fast and pray and then come back and heal him.
Right.
Right. So he's, we know he was always praying, right?
Yeah. So I have a story related to that. There was a farmer, and the farmer had a huge farm, like acres and acres, and he had cows and sheep and horses, and he had two sons that were helping him around the farm, and both of them happened to get married at the same time. So the farmer had to hire somebody to help. So we started trying to put our ads out, I need help, and people would come and interview, but he couldn't pay him enough. So eventually his man came around, maybe in his 40s, and he said, he's kind of old for a farmhand. He said, my farm is huge. And he said, oh yeah, that's okay. And he said, I can't really pay that much. And he said, oh yeah, you got a nice farm though. He said, I'd be happy to do it. And he said, okay, well, what kind of qualifications do you have? You have a lot of experience. Tell me about your qualifications. And the guy said, I can sleep when the wind blows. The farmer said, okay, but yeah, tell me about your qualifications as a farmhand. What have you done that, are you good? Or, tell me about your qualifications. He said, I can sleep when the wind blows. The farmer was like, well, okay, are you willing to do it for that pay? He said, yeah. He said, okay, when can you start? He said, I can start right now. He said, all right, so let him start. And the guy was like, he was great. He would get up early in the morning and work till late at night, and he was, good with the animals, and he was a hard worker, and he stayed, he stayed in the back house and slept there, and then the farmer was really pleased with him. And then one night, 2 weeks in though, at like 3 in the morning, he heard like thunder, loud thunder, and then he turned on the radio and it said it's gonna be a huge storm coming. It's gonna be a hurricane. The winds are gonna be blowing. It's gonna be raining. He said, and he said, oh man, the winds are gonna blow everything. He said, so he ran out to the farmhand, banging on the door, 3 in the morning, do 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 do. And then he opened it. He's like, what do you want? And he said, hey, it's a big, huge storm coming. We gotta go get the horses. We gotta prepare everything for the wind. He said, I can sleep when the wind blows. He's like, yeah, but we gotta get everything together, and we got to get everything together. He said, I can sleep when the wind blows. They shut the door on him. And the farmer was like, I'm going to fire him. And he said, oh, well, everything might be tore up. I may need his help after. So he said, forget it, I'll do it myself. So he runs over there to get the horses, and it's like, took him a half hour to get to the part of the farm where they are, and he can't find them. He wants to go put them in the barn, and then he finally looks in the barn, and they're there in the barn. They're already in the barn. Mm-hmm. He says, oh, okay. So he went to go, okay, let me go put the hay down. I don't want the hay to fly away. So he went to the hay, and it was tied down with ropes and had a tarp over it, and it was all covered. And he was like, oh. So he said, well, let me go get the sheep. So he went over there to get the sheep, and the sheep were all taken care of. And then he said, oh, he could sleep when the wind blows.
Because he already took care of that.
Yes, because he already took care of everything he needed. So every day, he prepared it.
Care, yeah.
Every day he prepared it as if there was going to be a disaster. He prepared himself every day. So when a disaster came, he could sleep. So that's what prayer does for us. It helps us prepare for when disaster comes. So when the wind blows, when we lose our job, when a relative dies, when we get sick, we're prepared ahead of time. We don't have to start praying then for God, if we're prepared ahead of time. So the first purpose of prayer is to equip us spiritually for whatever life throws at us. So it's to empower our spiritual strength to cast out the demons in our lives.